What's up, everybody? Welcome to your bonus GOG episode for this month. I am neither Greg nor Tim. It is I, the producer/solution, Nick Scarpino. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been looking forward to this podcast for a very long time. We've had this on the books, had to move it around a little bit.
Yeah.
But joining me today is my dear friend and former colleague, and now, should we talk about our sexual relationship or leave that alone?
Current friend, colleague, fucking.
Fantastic. Mr. Brian Altano.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Dude, thanks for coming back.
First of all, I love your new studio.
Thank
I haven't
you.
been here yet. I don't think we haven't done anything. Well, we have a video going up soon, but we haven't done anything together in a while. So
No, it has been a while. So
I miss
yeah,
you
that
guys,
was,
man.
I know, we rekindled our love affair when we did, are we allowed to talk about that project?
Yeah.
So we did a show for IGN where we went down and I tweeted the shit out of it.
Yeah.
So I was like, people know about it.
It wasn't a secret.
No, where we rode dune buggies for a sponsored video series that you guys are doing called Extreme
XGC.
Gaming Challenge, XGC, right?
That was a very good time.
That was great. So I was like, God, we got to do something. And so we tried to put this on the schedule, moved around for various different reasons. And we're having you back on GOG, the actual GOG main show, I think in about a month or less. If we got that schedule, we got to talk about that. But what I wanted to do was sit with you because I've been so impressed lately by your current weight loss.
Thanks.
When it is very impressive. I mean, like you've taken a lot of, I wanted to talk to you about that basically.
Sure.
You've always been fit to me.
What? No.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you first started at IGN and we were smoking fucking 2 packs of cigarettes a day together outside, neither of us were anywhere. We're not the pinnacle of health.
No. It's hard to like look at someone smoking a cigarette and be like, you look really good. You look
great.
Like you're in great shape.
But what I've seen from you over the years, having known you from that point on, is you've got consistently healthier, you've got skinnier, you've gotten more fit, you've stopped smoking,
Yeah.
You've stopped doing the traditional IGN, hey, there's 5 donuts there, why not eat all 5 of them, which was always my problem.
That's the fucking hard thing. And I think it's for most of the people listening, which I think that, like, honestly, like, you and me are not preachy people.
No.
But I think that if you're listening to this show and you've been kind of struggling with like some fat here and there for a while, hopefully this might help you a little bit.
Yeah.
And
so,
I think that, like,
sorry, just to preface for everyone, we will probably go off the rails at some point
yeah,
and go
definitely.
full Brian
Yeah.
and Nick. But I really did want to focus. I wanted to focus this episode specifically around Brian's what he's doing nutritionally, what he's doing diet wise, what he's doing workout wise. I want this to be a nutritional episode.
Yeah.
So we'll start there and see where we end that.
It'll
out.
definitely also be very stupid.
I'm sure at some point we'll start talking about Lady Gaga or some shit like that.
That's a huge challenge, right? Is the sort of like inner office snacks. I mean, you guys have now built your own studio,
Right.
So you've effectively found a cool way to minimize the amount of like extraneous donuts.
I will
and
tell you though,
bagels.
the snacks creep in.
Isn't it
right?
crazy?
It's we have a lot of great friends out there. When we opened the studio, everyone sent us these lovely gift baskets with booze and chocolate and popcorn. And man, there's so many different flavors of popcorn you didn't even know. And then like, yeah, you know, I obviously like I'm fairly health conscious. I don't look at anyone in this office as being specifically like unhealthy per se, but I'm probably Kevin eats a piece of pizza right now. Was that delivery?
No, it's DiGiorno.
Thank you. They're not a sponsor. We just really like
They
DiGiorno.
will be.
They hopefully will be one day. But I'm always the one I feel bad because I'm always that guy that's like, oh, I'm gonna talk about this, and this.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, shut up, dude. We just want to enjoy our carbohydrates.
And that's the thing, though, right? Like you, what did you used to weigh?
So yeah, so for context, let's back up. We'll go through the histories. So in 2004, at the height of my weight, I was graduating college 2002, and then I decided to do something about it. I think in 2004. So around 2002, I was about 265 pounds.
265.
265.
Wow.
I'm 5'8". So that is, by any standard, probably not a healthy weight for a person who's 5'8". If you're maybe 6'8", that's probably okay. But I was unfortunately, and my habits were essentially do whatever the fuck I wanted, whenever the fuck I wanted.
Yeah.
Eat whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. And I would eat. I started to realize now, only looking back on that you eat for a lot of different reasons. Most people who don't have a problem with food eat because they're hungry.
Yes.
Right.
And that's it. That's the end of the conversation for them.
You know, and I have some friends of mine, and I have like my father-in-law is hilarious to me because he forgets to eat sometimes. Eric Hart forgets to eat sometimes.
That's fucking fascinated me my entire
They'll
life.
just get to the end of the day and go, oh man, what is that pain in my stomach? Oh, I haven't eaten in 24 hours.
I'll go out for drinks with like Marty Sleva, and I'm like, did you eat today? And he's like, oh, no, I forgot, you know? And I'm like, how did you forget to eat?
That was an awesome Marty Sleva / Oscar the Grouch.
It's like a Muppet version of
Yes, a
Marty.
Muppet.
I love you, Marty.
Yeah.
No, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I want food and coffee. right? And then lunchtime, like it's creeping towards noon. I'm like, food again.
It's food time.
I get home in the door. I'm like, how do we do dinner? Like, food isn't, and I'm, you're Italian. I'm Italian.
Oh yeah.
Sitting around big tables and consuming mass quantities of food is part of our heritage.
It's tradition.
Yeah. And
That's
to
how
turn
you
your
show your
back on
love.
that. And I think that's like, there's a lot of hurdles, right, that people face when it comes to losing weight or correcting sort of bad
habits.
programmatic like habits that they have. And one of them is cultural, right? And I think it's hereditary. I think it's cultural. I think, like you said, like you're shorter than me, right? So you're like, if you eat a little more than me, like it just sucks for you a little more. Like I've been co-host with people my entire life, like Max Scoville, Greg Miller, people like Jose Otero, like guys that are like 3 feet taller than me.
I don't know where they keep finding these people at IGN, but
it's
they just keep
fucking
hiring
nuts.
really tall people.
And they eat whatever they want. And
But then there's
like,
Goldfarb, so he balances it all out.
Goldfarb's great.
Yeah.
And it'll fall into different places in their body, and it's easier for them to hide it.
Sure.
But for me, I always ate because I was hungry. I was stressed. I was sad. I was, culturally, like, I'm Italian.
Yeah,
So it's
Sunday
like,
or
it's
Saturday or
Sunday,
Friday
you eat a
or
big
Monday,
meal.
right?
Like, yeah, your mom starts cooking dinner on a Sunday at like 6 a.m. and then like you're just eating, you're grazing the entire day.
Let me paint a picture for you of this. You smell it first, and you're like, oh, that smells good. You go downstairs, and you're like, are we having 30 people over tonight?
Yep.
And your mom goes, no. It's just the 4 of us.
No, we're doing a food challenge for 5 today where we eat like 30.
Because that was that thing. Obviously, like I didn't grow up poor, but I didn't grow up especially affluent, right? So my mother was always very good at like cooking meals that could last us a couple days extra
Like pasta.
with leftovers. Yeah,
It's
pasta
an
would
easy
always
one.
be a big bowl of pasta, and I think she had best intentions of cooking it, of being like, hey, you've met my brother multiple times now,
Yeah.
so you understand where the psychoses of Scarpino lies. But she would cook with best laid plans of saying like, hey, let's partition this out throughout the week, and then my brother and I would, no matter what, either eat it all there or at the end of the night we'd be like, we're bored, let's eat that food.
Because it's there, and then you're drinking. And
Yeah, and then
want
you're
another
like,
one.
oh, yeah. So let's back up for a second. Where are you at weight wise right now?
So right now I weigh 161.
Okay, and you're 6'1"?
I'm 6.
6
I
foot.
should be 6'1", but I slouched like Mo the bartender.
Yeah.
I was 194 like 6 months ago.
Okay.
And the worst I've ever been, but probably like a year or two before you met me, was 215.
So that's not bad for 6. For your frame and your height, that wasn't bad. So that's why when I say I looked at you, I was
not
like,
great.
Well, I never looked at you and said, wow, that guy's overweight.
Fat,
Right?
yeah.
And I'm not one to necessarily do that for people either, because I empathize heavily with people who are heavy.
It would be a weird trait of you to be like, that guy's fat. Like that was your thing. You just
Right,
told
like
them
I'm just
that.
randomly pointing at people and I'm like, fat. No. So what brought on this most recent like want to get a little healthier?
So it's kind of been a slow transition for a few years, but this year was the year where I just really kickstarted it. For a couple of years now, well, first of all, like we didn't say the word calorie in the mid 2000s. We just didn't. Like we didn't count calories. We didn't talk about calories. We don't know what empty, open calories.
Right.
Good, bad fats.
It was just food.
Like we grew up. Most of the people who are our age are fat because somebody drew a triangle in the 80s that was wrong.
Yeah.
Like that was really it.
Yeah.
Like the food pyramid in the 80s was like, you should have this much bread and like
this much cereal, this much grain, this much bread.
And at the end you had like a triangle of ice cream.
A little bit of
at the top.
Yeah.
So now I think we know it, like you should have the tiny triangle should be bread and stuff like that, but the rest should be meat and vegetables.
Well, that's an interesting question, dude. Do people know that? And here's the much lauded debate, which is a lot of people still. Well, in my brain, there's 2 main methodologies of quote unquote losing weight, right?
Yeah.
And I don't like the idea of telling people they're losing weight or they're going on a diet, because I feel like that's doing it a disservice to say.
I don't like saying that either.
I don't like it. And in fact, I don't even like the word diet. I know it's stigmatized at this point.
Yeah.
When I talk about my diet, I don't mean I'm constantly on a diet. I mean I'm thinking about the things that go into my body in a dietary fashion.
That's exactly it. I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah, I'm not constantly feeling like I'm in a state of diet, because that's important, right? I feel like the reason I gained so much weight was because the same reason you do, right? I was happy, sad, anxious. It was my reward mechanism. It was my I've had a bad day mechanism. It's today's blah, I'm bored, I'm gonna eat, right? And so there's lots of things that build into that. Me saying I think about my diet now is not me counting calories. It's not me logging things.
No.
It's me saying I'm like we went to Chipotle today. I'm like, I'm gonna make a conscious effort to have a little bit of healthy fat, some protein, and yeah, I'll throw some pork in there too, because why not?
Well, because you can go to Chipotle and you can get a bowl that has like guacamole, it has meat, and it has veggies in it. And you can put some hot sauce on it and you're good.
You're good.
And if like, you know, you can also walk in there and buy a baby's arm that's bursting.
Right, exactly.
And you can eat it by yourself in your car.
So
but the thing about that is that, I don't know why I said car, that's a weird place.
I've eaten many a burrito in my car before.
So the weird thing
it's
about
a very
that,
Southern California thing to do, to try to eat a burrito while you're driving on the 405.
And here's the
It
thing,
doesn't make any sense.
If you live in America or you live in the universe in 2017, which I assume you do because you're listening to the show, you're fucked. Like you're playing this shit on hard mode. Because when you leave the house in the morning, unless you make your own breakfast, unless you control all of that situation, you're going up against like Taco Bell's like, hey, we got breakfast now.
Yeah.
KFC, everybody else is doing breakfast. So you're starting with like breakfast sandwiches, right? And in the last few years, they even started being like, what if we put maple syrup in the breakfast sandwiches? Right. What if we put cream and sugar in your coffee?
What if we serve the breakfast sandwiches all day?
All day. All day.
So whenever you wake up, you can get breakfast.
So your shit is already on hard mode. Right. And I'm the same way. I didn't really consider it dieting. I look at what I eat as a celebration of food that I can eat. Yeah. I don't look at it as a list of things that I can't eat.
Right.
Like I don't wake up and go, I don't eat. Like when you talk to vegans, they're like, I don't eat this. I don't eat this. I don't eat this. When you talk to people who are allergic to things, I don't eat this. I don't eat this. I don't tell people what I don't or can't eat. I just celebrate what I can eat.
Yeah, that's a good.
So
that's a
you
good
asked
way of
me
looking
like
at it.
what brought this on. This year specifically, not to get political, but I started watching everything going down with like the Trump administration, and then sort of like regardless of who you voted for, there's a lot of uncertainty in the universe now. And you wake up and you look at your phone first thing in the morning, and you're stressed about it.
I can't do it anymore, by the way.
It's fucking hard.
Now I wait until I come in here. I have my morning drive. I don't look at news, but yeah.
I'm like, okay, so like our internet's getting worse, like comment culture's getting worse, like people are getting fatter, like our healthcare's getting worse, everything's getting more difficult. I'm like, what's something that I have direct control of? Because I feel completely fucking helpless right now.
Right.
And I was like, oh, me, my frame,
my health,
like I can fix this. Because like the way that works was like, okay, so when Donald Trump got inaugurated, or I think when he won the election, I went to Taco Bell for the first time in like 4 years. And like I stress ate. And when you stress eat, it's because you're sad and you feel like shit afterwards. So you get sad again.
Right.
And you go out, you're like,
vicious cycle.
You're tired, you go out to Starbucks and you get one of the Starbucks that like, you don't get a black coffee, you get like a triple
frappuccino. Yeah.
You're eating ice cream basically.
You're basically, yeah.
So that's not, you go there for your energy to pick you up, and then it just like swoops you back down into sad town. And you just kind of ride this like sad like wave all day long until you're in bed, and then you're like, tomorrow's gonna be better. But it's not, right? And it's really hard to do that. So I found this book called Whole30.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So Whole30 was this program. It's a book you can get on Amazon. It's like $13. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not connected to them in any way. It's just a cool book I found. And it's kind of a 30-day challenge of here's the things that you can eat, and here's the things that you should try to avoid. So for avoiding, it was like get away from like sugary stuff, get away from sugars, right? And those are the kind of things they creep in everywhere.
Oh yeah,
everywhere.
Yeah, one of the things I watched a documentary about, I think it's called That Sugar Film, or there's another one called Sugarland, and they go through all the different names, the different chemical makeups of sugar that are in products. And it doesn't just say sugar. It's like there's like tens of hundreds of names of different things that are actually sugar. They're just a little bit, they just like homogenize. I don't know what the fuck they do to them, but they do something to them and it changes the name. And that way when you look at it, you're like, oh, maltodextrin. Actually, I don't think maltodextrin is sugar, but you know what I mean? Like you'll look at it and there'll be like 5 ingredients, and you're like, oh, and it's all sugar.
And it'll say sugar-free on the front too, which will fuck you up.
Fuck you up.
So, and that's the thing too, like, so it basically no processed carbs, so no bread, no dairy, which was very tough for some people.
That's tough.
I'm back on it now.
I still have a problem with dairy. Yeah. Everyone's like, I've noticed, I've started to cut out creamers, creams, milks, because in my coffee, I drink so much coffee every day that I was noticing that I'm like, this diet's not necessarily, the method of eating is not as effective as it should be because I'm drinking a cup of cream every day, essentially, with and 5 cups of coffee.
It's like 100 calories each time, which again, like I'm not counting calories, I'm just pointing out that that's
well, let's actually, before we go into the Whole30, so there's what I wanted to drive at was there's 2 basically schools of thought that I see now.
Yes.
There's the calorie in, calorie out concept, which we've been talked to about ad nauseum since I've been born. I feel
like, you counting calories?
No.
Okay,
I don't traditionally count calories. I have before. It has worked. It does work.
Yep.
If you're at a point where you feel like you don't necessarily know where to start with all this, a great thing to do is download like MyFitnessPal or something and just start logging everything you eat. And then you'll see, holy shit, I guarantee it. If you're honest with yourself, you'll be like, wow, I'm eating 1,000 calories too much. You can do that if you cut it down to whatever is appropriate for your body. And there's lots of things that you can go online. You can calculate that. Usually you have 17 to 1800 calories to create a deficit. You can lose weight that way.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that though. That to me is, I have ping ponged back and forth on that before where I'm like, I don't feel like counting calories today. And then you play I end up inevitably playing the game with myself of like, how many items, how can I deprive myself of calories all day so I can go to Taco Bell at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And that's just bad. Because, and I think you're going to get to it now, is that not all foods are created equal. Not all calories are created equal.
No.
And so that brings us to a methodology like the Whole30. So sorry, go from there.
So the thing with that was my kind of Marvel phase 1 was lose fat. Right. And my Marvel phase 2 is gain muscle.
Yeah.
And phase 2 is going to take a long time. And I'm really not in a rush for it. But going to the gym fat sucks.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's fucking impossible. Like so I'm seeing a trainer now, but I wasn't for the first 2 months. And he was like, how much weight did you lose? And I was like, 32 pounds. And he was like, here's 30-pound dumbbells, got on the treadmill. And I went on the treadmill. I was like, fuck, I used to carry this shit everywhere. Like in my tits and my ass and my belly and shit.
Bad on your back, hard on your joints,
right
knees.
in the neck.
Yeah.
You know, you get that dewlap.
Oh, I had that dewlap.
Look at George Lucas.
I want a fat scarf. Yeah, the George Lucas.
So yeah, my phase 1 was basically like lose fat. And I think a lot of people are like, I want to lose weight. And then immediately they sign up for a gym. They get on a treadmill. They don't know what they're doing there and they're exhausted and they give up. And like, don't do that. Like correct your diet first. Because if you can go to the gym for 10 hours a day, but if your diet is fucking garbage.
Yeah, if you go home and this is the problem that I used to do with that, right? Because I would go to the gym, count the calories, say, I burned 200 calories in the treadmill. I probably burn another 100 calories lifting weights.
Yep.
Cool. I get to eat another 300 calories. That's very difficult to do, especially when you're eating and you have an eating problem and there's food in front of you. You're going to eat 900 calories.
I think people treat it like when you get your paycheck in the middle of the month and you're like, oh, I got $1,500, 1,100 goes to rent and 300 goes to everything. And no one ever goes like, I should save that $300.
People go, cool, I can spend 300, and they go out and spend 500.
And they spend 500.
Right? And they're like, shit, I'm in the deficit.
Exactly
right?
it.
And so that's the general problem. I can't tell you how many times I hear, oh, man, I gotta lose weight. I gotta start going to the gym.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is a component of it.
Yeah.
But it is not the most important component of it. The most important component is what you're doing for the other 23 hours that you're not in the gym. Right. And they say a lot. I heard a great saying, and I think it's honestly true, whereas abs are made in the kitchen.
Yes.
That is the best saying I've ever heard, because what you put into your body is really, really dictates probably about 80% of how healthy you're going to be overall. The other 20% is how much sleep you're getting, how much exercise you're getting, what you're doing for your body work,
how much water you're drinking,
how much water, hydration levels, generally things like that. But a lot of people think, okay, I'm just going to go to the gym, or I'm just going to ride my bike today, and yada yada. And the problem with that is, then you're just forcing yourself to do something you hate every day, or that you feel like you have to do every day. When in reality, what you're doing, I think, is a much better it's a much better approach to it, because you've already lost the fat, and now you just can kind of hang out and find a workout that works for you.
Yeah,
and do it at your pace. You don't need to gain muscle.
No,
you look good.
And well, I mean, I should because I look weird, right?
Well, you should also gain. Well, you don't look weird. You look very skinny.
Well,
you look
I feel
great
like
in a suit.
I look like, when you get if like when you put different action figure parts on it's like I have like skinny, I have like Barbie arms, and then it's more of like a Voltron body. It's just weird, right?
Well, another reason why gaining muscle is a good idea is a lot of and by the way, take everything we're saying with a grain of salt. We are not nutritionists. Obviously, you guys know who we are.
Yeah, we're not
telling doctors.
What worked for
us. We're
us.
telling you what worked for us, our experiences. If we're wrong, please let us know. Tweet at us, leave a comment, yada, yada, yada. And definitely fact check everything we're saying for yourselves if you want, if this is something you're interested in doing, because don't take people's word for it. Get multiple sources. Anyway, that's my preface. Because I've said a lot of things in the past, and people are like, dude, that's totally wrong. And I'm like, again, not a scientist, not a doctor. I just know it's worked for me. The concept of gaining muscle, though, is good, because it takes more calories to sustain muscle than it does fat. And your body, if you're constantly feeding it the right things, good proteins, good fats, things like that, the more muscle you have, the more it'll burn fat. Yeah. I think I got that right.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So, if you have an extra 20 pounds of muscle on you, your body has to work harder to keep that muscle. It'll go into your fat reserves more often.
And I think a lot of that, like we're saying, a lot of that starts with sort of correcting bad food habits, right? And that's really the root of it. It's spinning labels around on things for the first time ever and being like, what the fuck? Like, why is that in there? Like, so like,
why is there 50 grams of sugar in everything.
This company sent us, because we work in the same in weird industries, right? I mean, we get weird shit in the mail. So we got a box of like these like breakfast sausages or something, and I was like looking at the ingredients. I'm like, I eat sausage a lot now. Actually, like, so the weird thing about my diet is that like people now that in the comment section of my videos, they're like, why don't you eat a steak, bro? And I was like, I actually eat more steak than I ever had before.
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of steak, a lot of chicken, a lot of fish, a lot of proteins. I fucking love that stuff. But so we got these sausages in the mail, and like it was like ingredients: 1, pork; 2, corn syrup. And I was like, why?
Why?
Like why? Like you don't need that.
No,
like that's not
do
necessary.
not need a sweetener in a sausage.
It's very
but
odd
it's because
to
of the flavoring, right?
Yeah.
So real quick, going back. So let's talk about.
Sure.
Yeah, pull it a little closer to me. Going back to the whole thing, talk to me about what this is.
So it's a 30-day challenge, effectively. Which, if you play video games, you should be like, things should be challenging to me, right? Unless you play easy baby games, in which like, what are you doing, man? Get it together.
That's how I do it.
So it's a 30-day challenge of effectively saying like, all right, I'm gonna cut out corn products. I'm gonna cut out dairy. I'm gonna cut out like processed carbs and sugar. So that's basically the brunt of it, and alcohol, which. I know it sucks. Like if you got to get fucked up, eat pot. I don't know what to tell you.
We are not endorsing eating pot, but you can do that.
But you can do that.
That is a way of doing it.
It will help you sleep and reduce stress. But here's the fucked up thing: it'll make you really hungry for all those things.
Yeah, you'll really want Taco Bell.
That's true. So it's 30 days, and it's basically saying like, okay, I like to put hot sauce on stuff. Here's the hot sauce I get. Shit. Sugar's the third ingredient. I'm not going to have this hot sauce, but this hot sauce over here, like Cholula, which is awesome, or Tapatio, again, not sponsored, doesn't have sugar in it. So there, I have hot sauce with no sugar versus the hot sauce that did have sugar.
Right.
I just cut sugar out of my diet with something I use multiple times a day. I'm like, okay, so I want French fries. What do I do instead? What if I cut up a potato, put some salt and pepper and olive oil on it, put it on a rack in the oven, and made oven fries? I'm like, oh, now it's missing the trans fat. It's not deep fried.
Right.
I'm like,
you can take all the nutrients out of it. You
Yeah.
baked it, which is good. Some nutrients will come out, but you got the olive oil, which is healthy fats.
yeah.
Right.
So all the little corners you're cutting, right? So what I did was I basically devised this meal plan where I said, like, I'm going to go grocery shopping every Sunday morning. I'm going to buy a bunch of stuff. I'm going to batch cook stuff like chicken breasts, some vegetables, some, let's see, like I'll make like chicken meatballs, pork meatballs, like patties and stuff like that. Baked potatoes, sweet potatoes, bake a bunch of stuff. So I'll wake up in the morning on a Monday morning and I'm like, I'll fry some eggs. I'll throw it over some sauteed spinach. I'll have a little piece of sausage with that and a quarter of a baked potato or half baked potato. And I'm like, put hot sauce on it. I'm like, that's a fucking awesome
It's
meal.
the bomb, right?
Like, this is a fucking great meal. Most people don't wake up and eat that good. Like, the weird thing is,
I usually wait. Like most people, myself included, I've had these moments where I'm like, I'm going to go to Starbucks and eat one of the reduced fat cinnamon cakes.
Yeah.
Because apparently reduced fat is supposed to be good for you.
yeah, because you see those words and like, that's the funny thing is like you start digging into like the graphic design element. Like,
Yeah.
when you see that, the white box with the green font that's curling, it's like lean. It's
Yeah.
like, what? No, you just wrote that.
Yeah.
That doesn't
What does
fucking
that
mean
mean?
anything.
So do you track macros? Do you track your fat, proteins, and carbohydrates?
No. So I'm consciously. It's kind of like. Did you ever wear a Fitbit?
No, I never got into that.
Would you ever like do like step track or anything like that?
No, I didn't.
So I
don't
had a
understand
Fitbit
how
for
my
like,
phone works.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm old.
It sucks. I had a Fitbit for a little bit and then it flew off me like everybody else's did, and I stopped using it. But it gave me an idea, kind of like most people know their commute's around 30 minutes long, right? Or my commute takes 20 minutes to get on the train to get to IGN. With a Fitbit, I was like, this is how many steps it is to do this. I lost a Fitbit, and I'm like, now I have a kind of a good idea. So instead of actually like actively counting everything, I sort of hover around knowing kind of
where you're at. You kind of understand your base level of activity.
Yeah, I don't wake up and go like, "Oops, 12 eggs." Like I'm like,
right. Well, and that is a problem because this is not a one-stop solution to.
No.
If you sit there all day and eat sausages, you'll gain weight. I guarantee you will. Your body at a certain point will be like, I can't use this much protein. Well, actually, you won't gain weight. You'll start shitting yourself probably.
Yeah,
because that's happened to me before.
Yeah.
Your body has a limit of how much protein it could take, and your gut will be like, I don't want any more of this.
And so that's the really interesting thing about clean eating is that for the first time ever, your body starts to go. So I'll put you through the 30 days real quick.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, go for
the
it.
first week is not fun. It's not fun. Like, it's not going to be fun because your body's detoxing from all the shit you love.
It's essentially coming down from. I mean, for the most part, you're detoxing from sugar.
It's sugar,
right?
Yeah.
And detoxing from sugar, by the way, is very fucking hard on your body.
It's hard,
especially if you eat if you haven't been paying attention and you eat a lot of candy or you're just eating a lot of like things that have sugar in it.
Yep.
As a staple of energy for you, your body will not react well to that.
And it's everywhere. It's in energy drinks. It's in gum. It's in candy. It's in the juice you drink. It's in your hot sauce. It's in ketchup. Like it's fucking hard, man. Like it's hard to avoid, but eventually you find your brands. So the first 7 days you're coming down off the sugar, you feel lethargic, you have mild headaches here and there.
Did you get brain fog at all? Were you like
I was definitely a little
bit?
cloudy the first few days. And then things start to change and you start realizing like my sleep pattern's a little bit better. I'm a little bit more energetic. I'm still kind of pissed off if I see someone like, for some reason, I forget what it was. Oh, the Nintendo Switch launched and like that whole event happened. Not the launch, but the debut event.
The announcement, yeah.
And as what happens is, IGN ordered pizza for the whole office to work late. Somebody sent us pizza the next day. There were donuts in the morning. And I'm coming in and I'm watching all of these people indulge. And I'm like, fuck everyone here,
I want to strangle all of you.
Yeah, I was like, fuck these people for having this perfect metabolism that they can eat whatever they want. And I'm sitting here and it's like, don't do that. And like, I actually brought a salad to work and with chicken on it. It was a really good salad, but I went into the lunchroom and just angrily pissed off ate this fucking salad by myself. And everyone's walking around eating pizza. They're like, oh, put cheese on it.
I mean, that is, to back up, that is a problem, right?
It's tough.
Especially when, so what you're describing to a degree is a level of either low carb or high protein, high fat diet, right?
Yeah.
Right now it sounds like you're doing more of a high protein diet, which I think has actually worked better for me than the high fat diet. But one of the things that is a challenge and that you're going to encounter is that when you're talking about food, you have to almost look at it like it's a little bit of an addiction for people.
Yes.
And when speaking from a person who smokes a lot of cigarettes,
it's absolutely an addiction.
It is a thing where when you know someone's quit smoking, you subconsciously want them to not quit smoking because you want them to indulge in your drug with you because for some reason that validates you doing the drug if you can get someone else back into the frame, you know? Right. And so not that I want to stigmatize food as all food is a drug, but if you have an issue with it, you'll see that more and more when you're eating a salad. I can't tell you how many fucking times have had a salad, or I used to go to the Baysider Cafe, or what's that cafe down on by the office?
Right. I know what you're talking about.
The liquor store, yeah. We'd go and I'd make, thank you. I would make, I'd go to the salad bar and get a little salad, a lot of chicken, a little bit of like olive oil, and people would just be like, "What are you, a rabbit? You eating rabbit food?" And I'm like, "No, dude, I'm trying this thing that I think is going to be good for my body, and I don't know, but you're not giving me any support because you're getting a fucking sandwich."
And and it sucks, right? And it's like then you're put in that position too, and same thing with ex-smokers, where you're like, what kind of like clean eater, ex-smoker kind of person do I want to be? Do I want to be the person that's doing this for myself to feel better? Do I want to be the preachy guy? That's
don't be the preachy guy.
Cigarettes are bad for you.
Don't be the preachy guy.
That. But it's like that's the other thing is like you can be quiet about it and just kind of indulge in your own, whatever you're eating, or you can be preachy about it, which sucks because like just because you're new to this doesn't mean you should go say that to other people.
Right.
And I understand the irony in like two people doing a show right now about that.
Yeah.
But I still think it's important to sort of talk about that personal journey. And also, it's like, it's tough, man. Like people fucking haze you for it. Like
and there's, by the way, there's a certain level of pride when it starts to work.
Yeah.
That you start to take from it, and then you have that choice of like when people give you shit, you go, "Hey, this is why I'm doing this."
Yeah.
But that's a thin line because then you start preaching to people.
I know.
And then you're like, "Hey,
dude,
tough. Everyone should eat low carb because low carb is the bomb." Yeah. And then
like I said,
bad.
I'm an Italian kid from the East Coast. Like I'm not a San Francisco kid. Like I've lived out here for a while, so I'm lucky to live here because this is a city that that knows about clean eating. It knows about like finding good non-processed, non-frozen garbage covered in sugar. But when I go back to the East Coast and I'm like, oh, like I'll have some pasta sauce with some meatballs and maybe some vegetables on the side. Like, my brothers will be like, pussy.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah. My brother does. I love my brother to death, and he's been on low carb diets with me before, and he still just shakes his head every time we go to a restaurant, and I'll have to modify something.
Yeah.
I'll be like, hey, let me get a burger, but let's take the bun off of it, and don't take the French fries. Give me a side salad with that, and he'll just be like, you're not my brother.
Yeah, it's fucking weird because it's like, I mean, when you really drill down to it, like, what's the best part of pasta? Is it the pasta or is it the sauce? I'll tell you what it is. It's the sauce.
Yeah.
You know why? Because if you eat the pasta on its own with nothing else,
like
it's sad.
Yeah.
But if you have the sauce on its own, you're like, this is great.
This is the bomb.
Burgers are the same thing.
A cool soup.
Yeah, when you have like a bacon burger, like that's what you're there for. You're not. No one ever goes, McDonald's has the best bread.
Yeah,
like,
they really don't.
They don't.
They don't. There's an argument to be made that they have really good French fries,
Yeah.
but that's a whole other
So
story.
day 7, day 8, day 9, you're kind of waning off that foggy feeling, and you're starting to feel a little more focused and energetic. then things start to get fucking amazing.
Mm.
You start to feel weird and super powered. In the book, they call it tiger's blood because you get this fucking energy that you're like.
Thank you for the Charlie Sheen reference.
Yeah, you're like, that was like, thanks a lot. Oh, winning. It's like, really?
You know what though? It got me fucking stoked. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing right now, but I want to win.
Days 10 through 15, memes. No, so, it's bad. So you start to feel energetic because now all of a sudden, like, all of the cobwebs and shit are out of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the broken ass cars are off the highway and like everyone's speeding now. You know, like when something goes in your body's like, I understand this.
Mm-hmm.
I can break this down.
Yep.
You know, like
I know where to put it. I know where it's supposed to go.
Yep.
And to back up, and this is where I'm going to start trying to talk about science, and I'm sure this is inevitably the area where people go, Nick, just stop. So, and by the way, there were quite a few good resources of documentaries that I would recommend checking out.
Alex
one of
Jones is a great. Just watch it. No, I'm fucking with you. Alex Jones.
God bless that man. No, there's a great documentary called Fed Up that I think deals with this. There's that sugar film, I think is what it's called. And there's another one called Sugarland that talks about the effects of these processed sugars on your body and why your body can't take them. I will try and top level it for you right now. This is the basic concept behind a quote unquote low carb or a high fat or high protein diet. In that your body breaks down carbohydrates differently than it breaks down proteins, right? Carbohydrates tend to metabolize faster, and when that happens and you give your body things like breads, things like cereals, things like sugar, your body goes, holy crap, we got a lot of this. We need to do something with it right now. We don't need all this energy, and it starts creating excess levels of the hormone that helps to store this as fat, which is insulin. And once that happens, essentially, this is where I start getting caught in the weeds, so I'm just going to back up here. When you eat a lot of carbohydrates, the prevailing theory is that your body stores them more easily as fat and doesn't need them, like won't burn them as energy as readily available, right? It's quicker to burn them, so I guess it spikes your insulin, and your insulin stores it as fat quicker, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's the methodology. I totally just said 5 different things. Look it up.
No, you did good.
With protein and with fiber, your body burns those over a longer period of time. And so instead of storing it as fat, it keeps it and says, we're going to break this down, has to work a little harder to break it down, and will not spike insulin levels. And so the theory is, and it's backed by data on both sides, so you'll see, the more protein and fat that you give your body, the less ability it has to store it as fat. Like it does, that's not the go-to thing.
It's not pulling out all like the shipping container cargo boxes
It's not trying to figure out what to do
in the
with it
yard
all.
that is your body and being like, put the sugar in that thing. Like there's 800 Teamsters.
Now, this is very contradictory to what we've all, if you're in your 30s right now, you grew up on the era of low fat.
Right.
You grew up on an era that low fat is good for you, right?
Butter and steak were the devil the Reagan era on.
Right.
And it's like my dad's overweight, right? And he's been struggling with this for years, and which is why I do absolutely think that it is an addiction. And it's because he was like really got into his like sort of like food routine during the era where like A, the triangle, the pyramid, and B, people being like, butter is the worst thing for you, meat is bad for you, you should be having bread instead. And it's like,
cereals.
Yeah.
And again, it backs it up in a couple documentaries that I just named, but that sugar film, I think, talks about it a lot, of saying how much power and influence the sugar industry has had over how people look at nutrition in our country.
Yeah. Down to suffocating studies that were happening.
There's a lot of nefarious shit that apparently happened in the 60s and 70s where there's not, if you start digging in it, there's not a lot of data that supports the prevailing wisdom that low fat diets are good for you. Your body needs fat, your brain needs fat. Lots of good fats are good for you. But their theory, and I guess you can call it a conspiracy theory, you can choose to believe it, and go look for yourself, of course, is that the sugar industry's main methodology for doing that is because they wanted to sell their product to the biggest amount of people. And what better way to enforce that food triangle, which is complete bullshit. Like the entire bottom of the triangle is like grains, and you don't need that much.
Nope.
But what better way to do that than having to have a reason for your products to be in food? And the reason that sugar is in everything is because when you take fat out of things, the food tastes like shit. So you have to put massive amounts of sugar into them to make them taste better.
Yeah, and salts
and salts also things. So thus, if you want your product to have a lot of sugar in it so you can sell sugar, you have to have a campaign that says, well, that thing we're taking out of it is bad. Yeah. So thus the low fat.
Well, it was like a couple of years ago, General Mills got pressured and they were like, we're going to make our cereal all natural. And we're like, well, how does that affect like the Trix Rabbit and the rest of those fuckers, right? Like,
Yeah.
those psychopaths. So they cut over to like the new box of the Trix cereal, and like they've stripped away like, you know, the 90s we just started eating new colors like blue raspberry.
Yeah, like they like that's funny. In the 70s, it was like everything looked like a Cheerio.
Yeah,
everything was Cheerio because that's what a grain looks like when you
that's what
process
looked
it.
like. So they stripped away all that, and then like Trix for like a couple years. I don't know where it is now because I'm not really in that aisle anymore. I get arrested.
I go
when
once a
walk
year. My wife and I, for her birthday, we
Really?
pick 2 cereals and we go fucking ham on.
That's fucking awesome.
It's so fun.
See, and that's like we'll get to. I think we'll get to
it's
that part
great.
eventually too. But I think that's like you and me do not live in worlds of absolutes. Where like I said, I'm Italian from East Coast.
Yeah, nor
multiple
should you.
times. I was in New York City 2 weeks ago. I went to my favorite pizza place in America, and I ordered a pie and I ate it because you have to. You have to do that.
You gotta do it every once in a while.
But then,
Every
like,
once in a while,
I
I
woke
get talked
up,
about, yeah.
I woke up and I ate healthy, right? And
Yeah.
I think you got to get away from those vicious cycles. But like, yeah, General Mills, they made the Trix. Like Trix Rabbit now is just basically chasing these like orange turds. Like they're just so sad looking. But yeah, it's very very difficult. And when you look at Europe, what's interesting there is that they don't have as many additives in their food, so they're able to eat a lot of more meat, cheese, bread, wine, and stuff like that. But in America, like there's just shit everywhere. The amount of times that you spin over a label and be like, I don't know what that word is.
Yeah,
like
that's not real.
Yeah.
and theoretically, and a lot of it's
sounds like a Star
preservatives.
Wars character
a lot of
name.
it's
Maltodextrin.
Maltodextrin, yeah, like thickening agents, things
Yeah.
like that. And you start to realize after a while, you're like, I don't know if this is the way that people are supposed to be consuming things, right?
No.
Like, should we be, you know, it's confusing. It's confusing to think, well, we're a scientifically evolved society, right? Clearly these things that are in this product are good for us. The FDA has approved all this stuff, like it's good. But what you don't realize is like there's studies that talk about food dyes and how bad those are for you.
Yep.
There's new studies talking about how bad all of these processed foods, all the sugar is on your gut biome, the bacteria that grows in your gut, and how much that affects cravings and does all sorts of crazy shit to your body.
And mental health, right?
And mental health,
Because I
yeah.
think that directly impacts your happiness. And like ultimately, you want to be happy in this world. And your gut is telling you to be miserable, and your misery is telling you to eat more.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, man.
And
this shit is designed to fuck me over.
It is, and the more you feed that, the more it grows.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that you said that I found when I first started doing we came back to the diet after a long time, was that I forgot that your energy levels even out.
Yeah.
So when you have a diet that's predominantly carbohydrate based or processed sugar based rather, you get those beautiful spikes of energy.
Yeah.
But they are followed by those hilarious, I have to take a nap time now.
Yep.
Because you have the peak. I always said the peaks and valleys are a lot higher when you're on that diet. Whereas when you start realizing that you're eating more natural foods, you're eating more vegetables, you're eating more nutrients, and lots of good and healthy fats and protein for you, your energy level just goes like this. Bloop, and it kind of just stays constant. From when you wake up, you're like, huh, okay, I'm a little groggy, but I'm good. And then midday, you're like a little hungry, eat. No, okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm good. And then by the end of the day, you're like, I'm ready for bed.
Yep.
But you don't have those moments where you're like, if I sit down, I'm going to fall asleep.
It's true. I think like your energy levels are sort of a little more consistent throughout the day. And
I mean, it's not like mind altering. Like you still
No.
I'm not going to say you're going to be able to fucking work 18-hour days and never
Yeah.
get tired. You're still going to get tired. But you don't have that like, I'm going to tear apart this desk. And then,
yeah.
I'm
You
so
don't have
lethargic right
like,
now, I
I
can't
think
move.
what it does is it kind of like raises your floor and lowers your ceiling a
Yep,
little bit, and
absolutely.
has you consistently in a better apartment than the one you used to live in.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
I guess that's the best way to put
the
it.
apartment just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
You're like, this is
So
great.
like, and the interesting thing too, like for example, is like when I had that pizza the other day in New York City, which was fucking amazing.
So good.
I've been keeping that whole 30 thing. I did it for 30 days, but I've been keeping a lot of the lessons I learned from that throughout. And it's been like 3 or 4 months now. And to me, it's completely second nature now. So like I mostly avoid sugars. I mostly avoid processed carbs and stuff like that. If stuff seeps in here and there, I do what I can to avoid it.
Yeah.
But when I had that pizza, I woke up the next morning and my stomach was like, dude, what the fuck was that? It's kind of like
that
when
happens.
it's like a fire department that, you know, like doesn't have to work very often. They're like, everything's good, everything's okay. But all of a sudden there's like a 4-alarm fire in town. I'm like, oh shit. They're
Yeah,
like closing
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
down. Like your body is like, I don't know what the fuck that is. And that's a good, it feels like shit and your stomach gets messed up for a little bit, but that's a good feeling to know that your body is like, not rejecting different food, but it's kind of like, whoa, dude, like I don't know.
Well, it's good, and this is one of the things that I try to pay attention to now when I eat things that I don't necessarily think I should be eating, which is how you feel
Yeah.
afterward, right? When I eat Taco Bell or when I go indulge in these things that I still indulge in all the time.
Which you should every now and then.
Why
right?
not? All things, but all things in moderation.
Yep.
You know, you'll look at it and be like, oh God, I feel weird. Like I feel bloated and disgusting. And like, that's the other one great thing about consistently just eating protein is that you never quite feel full and you certainly never feel bloated.
Isn't that weird?
It's very weird.
Yeah, you're never that feeling of just like,
You never have that I have to unbutton my belt.
Yeah,
or,
never.
you know. And
the
which is,
opposite, actually. Like I had to throw out all my belts, get new belts. I had to throw out a bunch of clothes. Like I'm the kind of guy, like you can't tell now I'm just wearing a black t-shirt, but I like to spend good money on clothes. And like I have a bunch of shit I was just like brought the Salvation Army. I'm like, well, bye. So yeah, I think it's interesting. And like I think one thing we can do is don't look at this as like this entire new approach to the universe. Look at this as like microcosmic battles that you'll fight on a daily basis that you can easily overcome. Like when you want a soda, like what I do now is I just have water or I have black coffee or I bought a Soda Stream for my apartment, which are great. You just make your own club soda at home. You can add like fruit juice to it. You can add lime or lemon to it. Or I buy those things LaCroix.
LaCroix,
LaCroix. I don't even know how to fucking say it.
well, there's debate, but I think it's LaCroix.
LaCroix. Okay, we'll call him LaCroix then. I like your terminology. So I get those. You get that noise of like psh, clicking
you
open.
have the feeling of the can. I've tried to get myself to do that because the one thing that I know is stinting my progress with with losing more fat is that I am still addicted to artificial sweeteners.
It's tough, man.
And they're bad for you.
It's tough, and it is an addiction. Your body gets hooked to it. I think that like soda is one of the toughest ones in this country because most people they'll buy 2-liter bottles. They're dirt cheap. It's literally cheaper than water.
Yeah, it's
in
ridiculous.
most cases, it's kind of fucking nuts. But you get to a point where you can wane off of it. You can tell yourself like you don't need that afternoon treat. You don't need that afternoon soda, that ice cream. Snacking is another thing that's like, it's tough, man. And to people, I say like, there are things like, there's these things called Epic bars. They're basically like beef jerky. They make them like chicken sriracha ones, they make lamb ones and beef ones. They're really good. They're like 150, 200 calories. Beef jerky without any added sugar or anything like that. RX bars are really good. There are other ones. They're like 5 ingredients. It's like walnuts, dates.
Yeah, that's generally for bars, by the way. The fewer ingredients, the better.
Absolutely.
Like I like, and I don't recommend them necessarily for a low carb diet. But when I want something, I usually carry Lara bars with me because all they are dates and nuts.
Exactly. What I do also, like if I don't even want to spend money on those things, is like I'll get a handful of almonds, I'll have an apple, I'll have a banana with some almond butter on it or something like that. But for the most part, I'm actually at a point where I'll have like a big delicious meal for lunch and I can kind of ride it out till dinner. Like maybe in the afternoon if I need like an iced coffee or a tea or something like that or a water, like that'll hold me over. But what you want to do is kind of like get yourself to a point where you're excited about the shit you're having and then it'll ride you out till dinner.
Yeah.
If you're starving in the middle of the afternoon, you probably didn't eat the right lunch.
Or you might need to eat a little bit more of what you're eating.
Yeah.
But protein and things like that. And
now that goes out the window once you start exercising. Like that's now I'm exercising now and I'll have breakfast before the gym and then I'll go to the gym and my trainer will be like, hey, when you go home, have a huge breakfast. Have like 4 eggs and all this. And I'm like, wait a minute. When you lose weight, you can have 2 breakfasts. Why the fuck didn't anyone tell me that?
You're specifically
I love breakfast.
Well, you're specifically trying to pack on muscle.
Now it's
and muscle
story.
needs protein. Yeah. So that's what a lot of people like will tell you is the second you go home, try to eat protein. I guess I don't know necessarily the methodology behind it, but a lot of people like to eat, but they'll eat before and after, and they'll specifically have good protein and a lot of it after the lift because your body is trying to rebuild the muscles.
And that's like that's a road I want to walk a few feet down and then just be like bye, because that whole like that exercise culture thing, like the
again, it's the same with what we're talking about here, right? Like you can go so far on this diet if you want to testing your blood every day to see what your ketone levels are going to be.
Yeah,
but you don't have to do that. I've tried to do that. It's a little too much for me, right? Specifically, trying to the main concept of a lot of high fat, low carb, medium, I guess, protein diets is that you're trying to kick your body into burning ketones as its main source of energy, and that's. I don't want. Again, I'm going to start getting into the weeds and start things. But that you're trying to put your body in a state of ketosis where it burns ketones as its primary source of energy. The way you can track that, if you want to go fucking hardcore about it, is you get one of you prick your finger and test it like a diabetic would.
Oh my god!
And you
really?
can do that. Yeah, you can test your ketone levels if you get a specific meter, and you can see where you're at millijoule wise, or I tried it for a couple of days. I'm like, I can't.
Yeah, that's
I can't. This is too much for me.
That's so deep.
You can track your macros, you can track all that stuff. You don't have to do that. Same with if you're working out. If you want to look like The Rock, you gotta probably become a professional at bodybuilding. You have to understand how all that stuff plays, and you have to understand your physiology, because, by the way, if you look at our two body types, they're very different.
Yeah.
So the way you eat is going to be, you have to kind of take that into consideration as well. But if you just want to pack on 5-10 pounds of muscle, and that's pretty easy to do.
Which is fucking...
Literally just lifting weights and eating a little more protein will probably do that for you.
It's fucking bizarre to me, dude. Like, you've known me for years now. Like, I'm on the weird opposite end of comment culture where, like, many women in the gaming industry are now, where people are like, hey, why don't you have a burger? I'm like, what?
Again,
like, where were you when I was eating burgers?
well, you never told me to stop eating burgers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, that's another one of those things where I look at when people say that, and my gut reaction is fuck you. And then my second reaction after I've had time to think about it is I feel bad for you.
Yeah.
That your reaction to seeing my weight loss and this good thing that I'm doing for myself is to chide me for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've gotten that. I've also gotten people being like, are you okay? Are you sick? And it's like, I'm like, no, I lost this weight consciously. I didn't lose this weight from AIDS.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, no,
you could lose a bunch of weight from AIDS.
It's important. It's important to note that. Yeah,
it's kind of good to point that out. I wasn't like Whole30 and then AIDS.
Yeah,
like, that wasn't my
bad disease. That's going to
my plan.
Take my health away from me. So Whole30 right now.
Yeah.
Walk me through just a normal day in the life of like what you eat.
Okay, I wake up, eat a bunch of AIDS blood. No,
Jesus,
I just
Christ.
fucking with you. Come on, everyone. I got him. No, so I wake up in the morning, and for breakfast I'll have it goes either sweet or savory for me. And for me, savory means that I'll have like eggs, I'll have spinach, I'll have sweet potato, I'll have some breakfast sausage or something, some combination of those things, right? Sweet is I'll have bananas with almond butter, handful of nuts. I'll have one of those RX bars and some coffee, like coffee every morning. I'll also do sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are one of those things that are like incredibly versatile. You don't think about them as a breakfast food, but if you have them at breakfast with like some banana and some almond butter or some nuts or some like coconut milk or something on it or something, you can basically make this thing that tastes like oatmeal. It feels like oatmeal, and it's like this big sweet, sugary tasting bowl of sweetness, and you have it with a spoon in a bowl, and you're like, I might as well be eating cereal right now or like oatmeal, but I'm not, and my brain's dumb. It doesn't know that. It's like breakfast ice cream.
It likes this.
It doesn't know the difference, right?
Yeah.
For lunch, I'll have either like some kind of chicken or fish, shrimp, pork, steak, some kind of protein that I cooked the night before or cooked that morning of.
Do you worry about ounces at all? Are you looking at sizing?
Not really. I'm not. I'm just kind of eyeing it out. You know, like basically like what you can fit on a plate, like some vegetables, a piece of fruit, and some steak, some meat. Salads are another easy one, but I understand people get bored of those. And I know that like you probably want a hot meal sometimes.
Yeah.
And salads just get to be like, you kind of feel like a horse eating them. I got to a point where I actually enjoy salads now because they are really about, it's not really about the lettuce. It is about everything else.
Yeah. It's that delivery mechanism.
But again, like Sunday afternoons are your day to like put on, get your laptop or your iPad, put it in your kitchen, and just make a bunch of food. Like bake a bunch of chicken, make a bunch of steaks, like stir fry a bunch of sausages, make a bunch of vegetables, and then wake up every day and go like, here's some protein, here's some vegetables, here's half a potato. That's a good carb. They're all on my plate at the same time. They're all in a Tupperware. Go on Amazon, buy a bunch of cheap ass Tupperwares, put your meals together for the week. You don't have to think about it. The one thing that will help, that will keep you from ever eating well, is that sort of like indecision of, it's 11:45, I'm starving. Everyone I know is leaving the office at the same time to go get lunch. Let's
they're all trying that new burger place that I might love. Yeah.
So then I come home from dinner, and dinner is where it's like, I'll be honest with you, dinner gets tough sometimes because you've had a long ass day. You don't feel like cooking. Sometimes you have some stuff prepped, sometimes you don't. When you go out to eat, it's very difficult because you don't know what everything's cooked in.
Yeah, that's the dangerous aspect of going out to eat, because you can always modify anything, by the way.
Yeah.
Anywhere you're at, you can find something that has protein in it and do it. But like Chinese restaurants, I found are impossible. Very impossible
because there's sugar in everything. There's cornstarches in everything.
All the sauces have sugar on them,
everything.
And most of the time you're getting that. If you're getting that chicken or that beef, it's been pan sautéed in something that's bad, a bad oil, like a canola oil or something like that.
And we talk about how
you have to be very careful with that.
Totally, yeah. And we talk about how this stuff starts in the kitchen. It actually starts a little before that at the grocery store. And the cheat code at grocery stores is that the center is pure evil. The perimeter Yeah, sure. Like
that's a really good way of putting it. That's true. I think about Trader Joe's.
Is
I'm like,
where you have like your meats and vegetables, and you have like chicken and shrimp and steak and fruits and all that kind of stuff like that. And you get to the other side and it's cleaning supplies, which you shouldn't eat.
yeah, probably don't eat those.
And then the middle is like Hungry Man House. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like ice cream and like frozen shit. Yeah. Processed frozen shit that's got like, they have to add a bunch of stuff into all that stuff so it stays on the shelf forever. So if you can stay away from like the frozen section in the middle of the store, you're doing pretty good. So yeah, you want to go to the store, you want to buy a bunch of good stuff, a bunch of like proteins and a bunch of vegetables and a bunch of fruits. You want to bring them home and it'll change the way you think. Cause like, all of a sudden you're like, I'm making a lot more meals, you know? And if you're rich, you don't have to do that. You can get on one of those meal plans where like they do Blue Apron and all that will help you.
Yeah.
out,
If you're fortunate enough to be in there's a lot of resources that can do that. Well, they'll just ship you like, for instance, our friend Hunter Pence he did paleo for a while. And so he would have his meals delivered to him. And it was really cool because they would have, when you're dealing with a chef that understands the ingredients that's supposed to go in there, but can be inventive about it, then suddenly you're getting like a cauliflower rice that tastes like rice. Yeah. That's amazing.
It
and
just
you're like,
makes you super
crap, this
farty.
is awesome. Oh yeah, it really does. And it makes your breath stink, but good for you anyway.
Yeah.
So going into the protein real quick, do you care about organic? Do you care about grass-fed? Do you care about any of that stuff?
I try, just because this is where I live here in San Francisco, I have that option. And personally, I feel like it tastes better. Like a lot of the stuff the least amount of shit that you have in anything, like it goes back to what we're saying, right, about ingredients and what you can read and what you can't. There's a lot of hormones and steroids and crap that get pumped into everything. I know that many of you listening to the show in the middle of the country, you effectively live in like food deserts, right? Like you are not near a sea, you are not near orchards of like, you know, everything has to get brought to you from somewhere else. The reality is like if you can eat even cleaner versions of the meat you're eating, that's awesome. Go for it.
Yeah.
If you absolutely don't have that option, it doesn't mean don't eat it at all. Don't starve.
It's not going to be the worst.
You're doing better than you probably were before just by trying.
Yeah, there's an order of operations, right? There's a hierarchy, right? So the McDonald's hamburger, probably a couple steps below the steak you're going to get at Alexander Steakhouse.
Yes, just a few notches.
But there is a gradient of good and bad in between those two things, right? And I always say like sometimes when you're on the diet and you're confronted, you're like, okay, you're at a pub and the only thing you can get is that burger. Yeah. And it's not a grass-fed Kobe beef burger or whatever it's going to be. It's still probably better than eating the quesadilla. Yeah. It's still probably better than eating the French fries or whatever the pasta.
Beer battered shrimp.
Yeah, exactly.
And all that kind of stuff. And I mean, we'll be honest, like eating clean and eating healthy is kind of expensive because you're consciously purchasing everything. But so is like getting takeout. So is like getting food delivered. Like that was the one thing I realized. Like, I'm spending more at the grocery store, but I'm not spending as much on like Postmates or like Domino's. Like no one's bringing me, you can get cheap food at those places, but like, even McDonald's, like if you go to McDonald's now, you're probably spending like $10-11 on lunch. Like it's gotten
it's gotten expensive.
Like Chipotle also, right?
Yeah,
like,
Chipotle. I think. Well, my lunch today was a little. I think my lunch was like $11 or $12, but that's because when you get all protein, you can play with the system a little bit. But you are going to spend a little bit more money than you would normally. And you're probably also going to spend a little more money on clothes because when you start looking awesome, you're going to want to dress awesome as well. But that's a good problem to have.
Great side effect.
The thing is, you just prioritize for it, right? And that's when you're making your health a priority, then you find that money someplace. And it sucks. Yeah, you go out to meals with your friends and they're spending $5 and you're like, well, I got to take the buns off and I can't do the fries. So in order to be full, I'm going to have to add an extra patty to whatever this thing is. Or I have to go for the steak when it's the most expensive option because everything else is fried and battered.
It's tough, man. And sometimes you're in positions where I'm like, I don't know what I can order on this menu. Right. And you have to come off like, I don't know, like when you go to dinner with like vegans and they're asking all these questions and they come off as kind of assholes about it. And they get this bad rap because they're questioning everything. It sucks to all of a sudden be like, oh, when did I become that guy? But eventually your friends around you just go like I had a thing the other day, me and Max Scoville, co-hosted IGN and the Comedy Button, we go to get burgers before the show sometimes. And I was like, can I get that in a lettuce wrap? And Max is like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, why not?
And it was like, oh, cool. Like Max just picked that weird habit up from me.
Yeah, why not?
And like he just saved himself 400 calories, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, of the bread for empty calories. For
and
no
like,
reasons.
like he wasn't like sad the rest of the day. Like it didn't change him dynamically. Like that does not define you, like.
Yeah.
Unless unless you're the clown at McDonald's or something, then it does.
Then in fact, it is your job to define that.
Yeah.
But that's a very important point, right? Which is that all too often, I mean, life is not exactly a basket of puppies, right?
No.
Life is hard. You have to get up every day. You got to work. You got to put food. You got to put money in your bank account, food on your fucking table. And a lot of us have families.
Yep.
A lot of us have people we have to care for. Ultimately, the first thing I've always noticed when going gets tough is that what I put in my body is the last thing I give a shit about.
Yeah.
But
That's so weird, right?
it's very weird.
So and I was going to say this real quick, not to cut you off, but our audience specifically is an audience of like fervent pop culture enthusiasts, right? We are the people who check IGN and Kind of Funny every day are the kind of people that check Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic, and they're like, I only play the best games. I want to watch the best movies. Like, I want to see the movies that have like the highest production value. And then they're like, well, what are you eating today? Anything.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Give me anything. So I think there's like this great irony, and I found myself guilty of it too, where I was just like, oh, that game got a 7. I don't want to play it.
Right.
But I'm like, well, this food got a 1.
Right.
Like, oh
I
shit,
didn't
put
check
it in me. Like,
but that's important, right? It's important to note because and don't feel bad about yourself if you find yourself if this is the first time you've actually stopped to think about what you're having for dinner or lunch today, because you're not alone. That's a lot of people. We are conditioned to have these responses to things, right? And if you've never thought about food before, if you never had to, or you never really carved out that time for yourself, you're gonna have that same response when you see someone change their be like, oh, I want a salad today. You're gonna be like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Right? That's stupid. But you have to be open to these new things, and you have to be, if you want to progress as a person, and you want to get ahead in life, you have to fight back that reaction of saying like, that's stupid. Why would I change my diet? And you have to be open to change, basically.
Yes.
You have to be open to being the kind of person that's like, you know what? I don't know. He's got something to him. I'll try that. A perfect example of that is, when I first started losing weight, it was going to the gym, calorie in, calorie out, create that deficit, right? I didn't see the bigger gains until finally I was sitting with my friend. I remember at a Starbucks, we were smoking a cigarette, and he was like, I'm starting this new diet called the Atkins diet.
Right.
And I'm like, what is that? And he was like, well, basically you don't eat bread, you don't eat carbs, you don't eat, and I was like, I don't know what a fucking carb is. I couldn't have told you at that point what the difference between carbohydrate, a protein, or a fat was. I was like, whatever.
or that there's like good carbs.
Right, or good carbs, bad carbs, good fats, things like that. And he was like, no, it's supposed to be like this magic diet where basically you just eat hamburger patties, cheese, and bacon, and, and you lose weight. And I was like, well, I already eat those things. I don't know why. I guess I just got to a point where I'm like, well, clearly what I'm doing right now is not working because I'm just gaining weight. So I'll try this, right? And that one decision to be open to someone else's kind of viewpoint in the world made all the difference because it actually ended up working. And if you're severely overweight, the Atkins diet can very much work for you.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it because it doesn't necessarily make a distinction between fats, and I think that's unfortunate. But it'll work. I was 260. I went down to 220 in about, I think, like 2 months.
That's crazy.
I mean, I did the first like 2 weeks. I lost like 20 pounds.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's like, it's important to note that if you just basically want to lose weight, if you drink more water, you cut out soda, you walk around a little more, and you start being conscious about eating clean food, I guarantee you will lose between 10 and 30 pounds in just a matter of months. I guarantee you that, because your body all of a sudden is just like, you're not putting 2,000 extra calories in me every single day.
Soda was a big offender for me.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, I gained the bulk of my weight because of soda.
Did you have? You were in a soda household?
Yeah, I was in a very much we were a Coca-Cola household.
Yeah.
What up? No Pepsi. But my mother would buy it. I think when Costco happened was around the time when I started gaining a lot of weight, because when I have obviously poor impulse control to begin with, and then when my mom started bringing home fucking reams of soda, remember the big 24-pack reams of soda?
Same thing on the East Coast. My parents would go to Costco and they'd give you a fucking like a truck pallet in that store that you cover with food, and they would come home, they would fill their trunk like you couldn't you couldn't
see over the SUV.
Like we lived in like Bosnia and we had to leave.
We were never getting back there, and that was the funny thing when you start thinking about it. You start thinking about it. And you go, wait a minute. They went to Costco every week.
Yeah.
So we just bought more food.
Yeah.
Ate the food and had to go. We weren't going it's not like my mom was like, hey, I'm gonna buy soda and this is gonna be your soda allotment for the next 6 months. It was, oh, all the sodas are gone? Well, I'm going to Costco today. I'll buy more.
Yep.
And so as a child, and again, I don't blame my parents for this. My mom would always be like, hey, stop drinking that Coke. And I'm like, you can't tell me what to do, woman. And I used to drink so many regular sodas that I one time got the shakes. I don't know if you've ever had this before, but my hands started shaking.
Oh my God.
And I realized I had, in the span of, by the time I got out from like 10 o'clock to like 11 o'clock, I had not only watched like 3 hours of cartoons, but I'd had 6 sodas.
Holy shit.
And I was like, so
and probably like a bag of Gushers and a box of Count Chocula.
oh, well, that was the thing too. Like, and that's one of the things like I'm so happy about now is like I physically just can't keep things in my house.
Yeah.
Because I'm so preconditioned to my mother's pantry. My parents' pantry used to be heaven.
Yeah.
They've since kind of adopted a little bit more of the methodology that I'm talking about.
Mine was like a Disney afternoon commercial
Oh
break.
my
like
God, you open it up, it's like,
just
rainbows come out of it,
Yeah.
and there's tricks and gushers and Twinkies and ding dongs.
Parents
Like,
aren't allowed.
No. It was it. I would be there, and I would be like having a whole meal before my meal, and then we'd have a meal afterward because it would be dessert. Now it's hilarious because sometimes when I go home, I'll still get that like old school like fat
Will you
kid
open up the
methodology.
pantry?
Yeah, but it's like a thing of old cashews, not salted.
Yeah,
which
God.
by the way, an unsalted cashew is just the saddest fucking thing.
Oh my God, you feel like a suicidal horse.
Yes.
Like you're like, what's wrong?
Somebody let me just fall off this cliff.
No, honestly, my pantry at home is like, it's just healthy stuff now. So I still do that thing I did as a 90s kid where I open it up and I stare into the void.
Yeah,
And you're just like, what? And then maybe in the back, like there's a Hostess cupcake. There isn't.
There's not.
And that really helped. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think that really helps the situation because you are now immediately, like that temptation does not exist.
Yeah, it doesn't
it's
matter.
gone. It's not in your house. Like when you're trying to quit cigarettes, if you have a cigarette sitting on your kitchen table,
you're going to smoke that fucking cigarette. Yeah, it's very true. And that's it's not necessarily the best way to do it. If you're really conditioned to that mentally, you should probably look for someone who can help you with that. Because it's hard. It's very, very difficult. You have to understand that if you are my age, if you're 37 and you're just starting on this weight loss journey, you have 37 years of conditioning to contend with.
Yes,
that is not something that's going to happen overnight.
Yeah, and it's harder. It's harder to lose part. Like I'm now finally getting to the point where like me being like a tube of toothpaste, like where the toothpaste has squeezed to different areas of me now,
right.
but it's mostly gone here.
Yeah.
But there's like I had triangle tits like 4 months ago, and I had like a big fat like 2-liter bottles around my belly. My gut is now the last to go. But there are food decisions in here that I made in college, like the rings of a tree. It's like,
you start feeling like, wow, yeah, that was. I remember when you had that Del Taco food.
And it takes a long time. So if you're listening to this and you're like 25 and you want to do this today, dude, do it. If you're 35, 36, like that's when I started doing this. Like, it's harder, but it can still happen.
Can still totally work.
Still change.
And the thing is this, and I know we just hit the hour mark, so we can start wrapping up here because I know you got other stuff to do. I've talked a lot about progress and things, and when the harder the thing is, sometimes the longer it can take, but it's always worthwhile. I view progress as little gains slowly over a long period of time. When you look at it like that, I think the number one reason why a lot of people ping pong on diets, or at least when they start trying to lose weight, is because they want it all and they want it all to happen overnight.
Yes.
And that's when you go hard at the gym for a week and you look at that scale and you haven't lost any, and maybe you've gained weight because you just put on muscle, right? And you get super discouraged. That to me is saddening, and it's the wrong way to look at it. The best way to do it is meal by meal, day by day. Just there's resources that we can talk about right now, which is the Whole30. I've read Atkins diet. There's a modified Atkins diet now that I haven't read, but you can probably look at that. There's something called the Primal diet, which is a high fat diet, I believe by Mark Sisson. And then if you want to go old school, and the diet that's probably had the biggest effect on me was paleo diet, which
is effectively what I'm doing.
It's essentially what you're doing. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what you're doing. The difference between those two diets, primal and paleo, is that one emphasizes fats as a main calorie source over proteins, which is the paleo diet.
Yeah.
Paleo diets can be crazy, so be careful. You might get to a point where you're like, holy shit, I just lost some time there, because maybe you're depriving your brain too much of calories. So you have to be careful with that.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. And I think it's important too. Like you can get books for all this stuff, and they're all dirt cheap on Amazon. They'll deliver to you in a day.
Yeah, you get them digitally. What I like to do is I like to get I download them onto my iPad, and I'll highlight things, and then you can skip to those sections, which is good. So I've gone back and reread sections of the paleo diet and primal diet a lot, just to sort of refresh myself on what is their approach to dairy, like what is their approach to artificial sweeteners. I forget what that's supposed to be like. And again, go ahead.
I was going to say, with the Whole30 thing, especially too, there's a book that they also sell, which is just a cookbook.
Yeah, that's
and so
fun.
Whole30, the first third of that is basically like, here's what you're doing, here's what's happening in your body, and the last 2/3 are basically like, let's eat. Like, here's all the shit you can cook now, and here's how to cook it, and here's how to make it easy. And then, so like, I think that's important to be empowered with a bunch of recipes and to sort of be like, tonight I'm making like I had Jared Petty over a couple of weeks ago, and he's trying to eat better too, and I made him like scallops in a butter sauce and steak with a chimichurri over it and like roasted vegetables. And he was just like, what the fuck, dude? And I'm like, yeah. This is diet food, quote unquote, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Once you get into it and take those first few steps, it's actually a lot easier than you think. But again, I feel like people always think, God, I need this, and it has to happen right now. And whenever you're looking at anything that's really hard to accomplish, and you look at it from a big picture standpoint, it's just daunting. It's too hard to deal with, right? If you're a person who needs to lose between 20 and 50 pounds, that's really hard to do overnight. It's actually impossible to do overnight. So give yourself that space, enjoy the process, utilize these resources that we've talked about, and just like chill on it. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be this grand sweeping thing that you're doing. Just do it for yourself. Enjoy it as it's coming, and I guarantee it'll work.
Yeah, ease into it. Read your labels. Oh, one last thing.
Yeah,
get a really good knife for your kitchen. Get a good knife.
That's always fun.
Like,
it's fun.
Because I honestly, like, my biggest problem with cooking for the longest time was like I had a shitty knife, and I'd be like, time to cut an onion. Bah, 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 bah. And you're like,
you're like, my hand has a hole in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's like a really easy cheat code to make all cooking your meals more exciting and more easy. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Brian,
Nick, thank you so much, man. This is fucking great.
Yeah, it's been awesome. We'll do this more. Well, we're going to do this again. You're going to come back on the podcast.
That's right.
I think in a couple weeks. I'm sure we won't talk about nutrition. We won't bore Tim and Greg with that. We'll talk about
they have great
games or well, they do actually.
For now, you never know.
Age catches up to everyone.
That's true.
Any last resources for people? Anything else you want to say?
Hit us up. Like, tweet at us.
That's, that's perfect. If you're doing this, if this is something you want to embark on, hit us up. Let us know what you guys are doing, and keep us updated. If you guys if you're finding that paleo works for you, or Whole30 works for you, or maybe you have some other thing that's totally not a protein diet that you think works for you, definitely share that information. Share it in the comments. Talk to people online. Go to the Kind of Funny forums and share it there. Because the other thing that that is sad is that weight loss is stigmatized. People look at it as a weakness. People look at being overweight as this bad thing. And it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah.
In fact, the more fun you can make it and the more inclusive you can make it in the community, the better it is for you. Because you can just have fun doing it. You can talk. We bond on this. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
We nerd out over protein, which is probably the nerdiest thing
It's
I've ever
weird,
said in my entire life.
Yeah.
But it's very, very good. So find your support structure for that and get into it.
Yeah, whether that's like a friend, a roommate, a significant other, or just, reach out to people on the internet.
Yeah.
I'm sure people in the Kind of Funny groups and the Comedy Button groups, all those people will help you get together and make you feel like you're not alone in the world dealing with this.
Yeah, there is and if you're paleo specifically, there's a huge paleo community online, so you can find people there. Brian, it's been a pleasure.
Nick, thank you so much.
Everyone out there, until next time, we love you.
We love you.